Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm still waiting to hear back from an artist about whether or not we can get some artwork done for these videos, but in the meantime, please sit back and enjoy my essay on the consequences of evil. What is evil? I think that most of us could point to the actions of the government of Nazi Germany during the Holocaust and say, that right there, that's evil. But merely pointing and stating doesn't actually define evil, and that statement implies moral judgment. Implicit in that statement is the further statement, quote, according to the standard of morality which I accept, the indicated action is not what a person should do in that situation, unquote. I hope that we all hold similar moral judgments when it comes to the Holocaust, but I digress. The key feature of the above implicit statement is the standard. What is that standard? Philosophers from Socrates onwards have been trying to define that, and we're still nowhere near a consensus. Here's the self-evident truth of the matter, though. The concepts of good and evil only apply to the evaluation of beings who have the capacity for choice, the opportunity to make one, and who thereafter did anything. The concepts of good and evil do not apply to deterministic entities who have no choice in the matter of their actions. In the event that you subscribe to one of the no free will lifestyles, this will probably not mesh with your notions about reality. So what is evil? Generally speaking, most of the moral systems which we here in the West during the 21st century apply to our daily lives have some variant on don't hurt other people as a major feature. You might therefore find it interesting that it is also an eminently practical way to live as well. Alas, poor Izaya Orihara left the good and the practical by the side of the road early in his journey. Spoiler alert for all of Durarara. Here we go. It's not surprising to most people who see it that Izaya Orihara met with an ignominious end in the climax of Durarara. After trying once again to kill his longtime rival Shizuo Hiwajima, Izaya is forced to flee Ikebukuro for good. He lives out the rest of his days wheelchair-bound and with constant pain in his arms. How did he get here? Izaya's modus operandi is, and was always, to hurt other people. The first thing we learn about him from Masaomi in the first episode is that Izaya is dangerous, and the rest of the story serves to pile evidence on top of evidence. From fomenting gang wars, to manipulating emotionally vulnerable people into attempting suicide, to out-and-out armed violence in the streets, Izaya has done it all. Were it not for Shizuo, he probably would have kept doing it until the day he died. No matter if you're a theist of some creed, a utilitarian, some manner of Kantian, or a transhumanist, Izaya is a bad person. What might surprise you is how his evil necessarily led to his demise. When you tell a lie, you're creating an alternate reality. It's a pretty lame one. To use a simple example, it might only be a world in which a bird ate the last cookie instead of you. However, you created that alternate reality for a purpose, usually for the purpose of extracting a benefit that can be gleaned by having some other person occupying a world where events happened differently. The internet informs me that Mark Twain once said, quote, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything, unquote. Here, though, we need to remember an important definition. A liar is not somebody who conscientiously speaks only untrue statements. Merely stating a handful of untruths, especially at critical times, will suffice. Izaya qualifies as a liar for such things as deliberate misrepresentation of facts by omitting context. Whenever Izaya or anyone tells a lie, the truth is thereafter their enemy. They don't merely lie once. They need to spend the rest of the lie's duration in a state of vigilance against any evidence surfacing that would lead to the discovery of the lie. Izaya is fairly capable of this. His vocation as an information broker makes him well positioned to control the flow and availability of the evidence, which might reveal the truth that he would rather stay hidden. Izaya's lies, therefore, will often more closely resemble a withholding of crucial truth from those who might benefit most from it. That would have been bad enough if he hadn't also been busy deliberately orchestrating or directly inciting acts of violence. When you initiate violence against another person, you imply not only that the world is a zero-sum game in which one person's benefit must be bought by the suffering of others, you also imply that in such a situation you consider other people as the means to your ends. Izaya's ongoing campaign of incitement against Shizuo Hiwajima implies that he cannot conceive of a better course of action for dealing with Shizuo's existence. Izaya is unable to cope with the reality of Shizuo existing, and also regards any and all people hurt in the process of trying to get rid of Shizuo as means to his ends. This, as you might expect, breeds resentment. By the beginning of the series, Izaya is known and despised by Shizuo and Masaomi. He is disliked by many others, and the few people willing to be cordial with him are either strangers acting politely by default, or his fellow violent criminals. So to reiterate the spoiler warning here, the end of Durarara features an end to Izaya's meddling in the lives of most of the rest of the cast. He winds up finally getting a major injury from Shizuo, and is forced to flee for his life, abandoning everything he worked for, while the remaining members of the cast put their lives back together into some semblance of how things were without his interference. Importantly, Izaya had exactly one alternative in this situation: leave or perish. If he hadn't, he wouldn't have survived. The only situation in which that happens is one where you've destroyed every possible resource you could conceivably employ. By the end of the series, everybody has been burned by Izaya at least once, and has no interest in his continued survival. Many of them are openly hostile to him as a matter of self-defense. They all know that if given the chance, he would only deceive and abuse others again. His only remaining friend, Shinra, nearly lost the love of his life due to Izaya's actions. That one friend also observes that there isn't a single bit of goodness in Izaya, and I think we can all probably agree with that assessment, regardless of our own moral convictions. Izaya's story is an object lesson in why abusing others is ultimately self-destructive. If you lie, you thereafter need to prioritize maintaining that lie over other and better uses of your time. If you initiate violence against the innocent, you move yourself into a zero-sum world where only death is possible in the long term. Knowing that these evils are impractical to people who desire to live in this universe is probably a good lesson. I hope we can learn it someday.